More tough times for Fox News. Of course, Bill O'Reilly was ousted after sexual harassment allegations and payoffs of $13 million came forward. Now, Fox News is facing a racial discrimination lawsuit. A couple of weeks ago, they fired the controller based upon racial discrimination allegations, where Fox confirmed those accounts. Well, on yesterday, 13 African Americans came forward at a news conference where they talked about those discrimination allegations, including Kelly Wright, the only black male anchor at Fox News. Now, he has been with the network since 2003. Again, he joins 12 other current or former Fox News employees from different departments who are suing the network. Wright's own personal instances of alleged discrimination are outlined in the suit. He says that former Fox host Bill O'Reilly rejected Wright's efforts to include more positive stories about the African-American community and its contributions. At that news conference, an emotional Wright talked about his decision to join the discrimination lawsuit against his employer.
We have a culture of systemic and institutional racial bias. And so when my colleagues from other departments began to publicly reveal their encounters with blatant acts of discrimination in their department, I watched it, I prayed about it, I cried over it and said, I can no longer sit in silence, collect my paycheck, and act like I didn't experience racial bias on my own level as an on-air personality.
During the news conference, attorney Doug Wead also talked about the allegations, racial discrimination allegations against Fox News.
Indeed, believe it or not, today, as we sit here, Mr. Wright is the only black male anchor at Fox News, and one of only 3 black anchors overall. Now, I know earlier this week on his podcast, Bill O'Reilly threatened that the truth is going to come out, and when it does, it's going to make you shake, I think is what he said. Well, here's the truth. Mr. O'Reilly would not permit Mr. Wright to come on his show to discuss how America could focus on achieving racial reconciliation in the midst of growing racial hostility. Instead, Mr. O'Reilly told Mr. Wright that he should call up Roger Ailes and Bill Shine and offer to sing the national anthem at the Fox News town hall. Rather than viewing Mr. Wright as the 2-time Emmy Award recipient he is, Mr. O'Reilly saw Mr. Wright as a singing entertainer. And when Mr. O'Reilly asked Mr. Wright to appear on his show to discuss the racial divide in Ferguson, Missouri, and suggested showing Beyond the Dream, a series of positive stories about the African American community, Mr. O'Reilly refused because it showed blacks in too positive a light, declaring that he, Mr. O'Reilly, knew black America better than anyone.
On our panel today from Washington, D.C. is India Gary Martin, former managing director and global chief operating officer of tech and operations at J.P. Morgan. She's also the founder of leadershipforexecs.com. Ralph Chittum's principal of Black Elephant Consultants, and also Dr. Julianne Malveaux, economist and president emerita of Bennett College in North Carolina. All right, folks, first of all, for Wright to come forward, I don't think that a lot of people understand in the media industry, when these lawsuits, very few on-air people who still work there will step out there and be a part of such a lawsuit. But he said he could not sit quiet based upon the allegations from these other employees. Ralph, I'll start with you. What often happens is there's a fear among African Americans who are on air that if they are part of such a lawsuit, they'll never get hired by anybody else again. So it's a pretty big deal for Wright to come out publicly to join this lawsuit.
For anyone to come out and state publicly that their current employer has engaged in discriminatory practices. You know, it's a big deal. He should be applauded for doing so. And what we have to do now is we just have to sit back and let the process go forward. Hopefully, the allegations will be I'm not going to say hopefully they'll be proven true. Hopefully the truth will out, and if the allegations are in fact true, there will be some sort of compensation or something for him and the others who have filed this complaint against Fox.
And Andy, when you look at the allegations, employees say that they were forced to arm wrestle white employees for the purpose of amusement for executives. When you hear Wright talk about how he was not allowed to go on other shows, talked about Bill O'Reilly and his treatment as well. But Wright also lays out how he went to executives to share his thoughts and got no response whatsoever. Your thoughts?
I mean, this is par for the course, right? I mean, you look back historically at the treatment of black anchors, and I mean black on-air personalities, but behind the scenes too, because actually there are 13 people involved in this, and the others happen to be support functions. He happens to be on air. His voice will be heard, and that's a wonderful thing, but the challenge is, his voice hasn't been heard. He stepped forward, he went to senior executives. It's unacceptable that there's been no action to this point, and actually it's unacceptable that he's had to come to this. He shouldn't have had to join a class action lawsuit to make his voice heard, but he's had to, and unfortunately, that's happened across industry for a very long time. And over the past year, there are a number of various media outlets who have been in the same position, where black people are coming forward and saying, we've been treated unfairly. For me, this is less about obviously, there's a compensation portion of this, but this is about how we change the systemic issues that we face, as opposed to compensation for me. So what I'd like to see come out of this is how do we ensure that we are treated fairly, that we get the same opportunities, that we're not made, we're being made mockery. We don't want that. We don't expect it, and we're not going to accept it. And so for me, how do we change this? Systemically, what are the outcomes?
Julian, this is not the only network facing issues. African Americans, a number of African Americans have filed lawsuits, EEOC complaints against CNN, and there's an effort for African Americans there to reach class action status. Also, there have been lots of criticisms about African Americans who are no longer on the air at MSNBC. Recently, Tamron Hall left after she was replaced on the Today Show by virtue of Megyn Kelly, and she also raised some issues there. When you look at what happens in the media industry, the reality is this here, the media basically reports on everybody else. They'll talk about racial discrimination or sexual harassment on Wall Street, in the Republican Party, in the Democratic Party. They'll talk about it in other industries, yet when it involves media, there are a few folks who report on it and they clam up because there's fear.
Absolutely, Roland. I think this brother needs to be commended, but I think beyond that, what India has said about systemic stuff needs to be dealt with. The Tamron Hall case in particular is one that we need to look at, but here's what I'm curious about. Will advertisers flee Fox because of race in the same way that they fled Fox because of gender? See, it's far more acceptable to be a racist than it is to be a sexist. And so you saw 50 advertisers say they were not going to continue to support the Bill O'Reilly show, and that's why Mr. O'Reilly is whining on his podcast. But you have not seen anyone step up and say, and there have been African-American complaints at Fox for some time, but you have not seen any advertisers say, we will not support a network or a program or a series of programs that have been discriminating against African-American people. Then your point about the media covering itself is another really important point, because we don't get these stories. In fact, the other 12 would not get the airtime they've gotten had not this on-air personality stepped up. So where's the sister who Bill O'Reilly kept calling hot chocolate? I would have smacked the you-know-what out of him. But I'd have given him some hot chocolate right up, never mind. We're not going to go there. But what we will say is that the people behind the scenes see the systemic discrimination, experience it, and often have very little recourse, are very silent because many people see them as interchangeable. One producer over another, an admin over an admin, see them as interchangeable, although they are not. And
Gotcha.
I don't watch Fox News, and I don't know a lot of black folks who do, but some do. So there's very little leverage we have to make these people accountable.
But also this issue.
Well, go ahead, Ralph.
No, but one thing I do appreciate is this issue is larger than Fox News, because we've mentioned CNN and NBC. This is something that if the advertisers want to step in and do something, they need to not just target Fox, they need to target every network where we have these issues. See, it's really easy to to pick and choose which networks or which individuals.
Anywhere, Ralph.
Exactly.
They would not be.
Exactly.
I mean,
But
race
we can't
discrimination.
pick out and say just Fox.
Yes, we
if
can.
We're going to, we
yes,
need
we
to go
can
after
because that's
every last one of these
yes, we
networks
can because
and
this.
shows
One
that discriminate.
1 second. Okay, Ralph, you done? Go, Julian, go ahead.
Well, I mean, in industry, that's how things get done. You pick one industry, they fold, and then you move from the one to the other to the other. If Fox is held accountable on race discrimination, believe me, CNN is going to pay attention. NBC is going to pay attention. So you can't say we can't just go after Fox. Yes, we can. This is how the Montgomery bus boycott.
But why not start at CNN?
Well, why not? Because there's not a lawsuit right now. Because this is what's up. This is where we have the leverage. This is where you have people speaking up. It can go to CNN, but it starts at CNN if they're watching.
But the reality is that Fox is unraveling on a number of fronts, right? There are a number of things happening at Fox which mean that we need to pay attention there. And there's a really opportunity for us to hold Fox accountable, right? So you have Bill O'Reilly, you have this lawsuit. I mean, Rupert Murdoch across, overseas and here is rife with issues. His organizations are rife with issues of sexual discrimination, racial discrimination. There's a long list. So guess what? That's where we're going to start. That's where we can add pressure right now, and we'll continue to add pressure. Advertisers need to pull back. They need to be brave. It's time for them to do something.
Do you think they will? I mean, advertisers do race the same way they do gender.
But here's the deal. But here's a question. Well, that's why one of the things that now that after yesterday, the question now will be, will the same organizations that publicly went after Fox over Bill O'Reilly and sexual harassment, will they now follow that up with another campaign targeting them based upon race? And so we'll certainly be covering that to see what happened.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. Your hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not going to let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally. What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
News 1 Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV 1.